What's up, y'all? It's Ty. In this video, we're going to be looking at the free agency, where we're at right now. At the time I'm recording this, it's about 10 Eastern time on July 1st. Obviously, so many other things are going to happen, are going to change. So obviously, we've got to really look starting on Saturday, June 29th, and then moving forward. Saturday, that's when, players, if they wanted to sign for their own teams, basically players could do that. So like you guys can see Bol extended. Paul George was reported to speak with some teams at the start of free agency. But then you can see players declining options, players picking up options. Patrick Williams signed a big-time deal. No, this isn't one of the bigger deals, but I gotta say I'm a big fan of Patrick Williams. I think that is a really important piece for the Chicago Bulls. Alex Len to sign with the Sacramento Kings. We're not done with the Sacramento Kings because obviously there's big news coming that way. Obi Toppin stayed in Indiana. I think this is big for Obi Toppin and Indiana. I think Benedict Mathurin is kind of the odd man out there in Indiana. Obi Toppin did show some really good flashes last season. Max Christie back to Los Angeles. Great deal for Max Christie. Again, a second round guy. You never know how they're going to work out. The Warriors declined or waived Chris Paul's option. Now, it's interesting because supposedly Zach LaVine was offered in a trade basically for Chris Paul and Andrew Wiggins. I think that shows how little Zach LaVine has in value. That the fact is they waived Chris Paul when in reality they could have had Zach LaVine. Harden, $70 million deal, player option for year 2. But you know what? Harden going back to LA. The Clippers aren't. Look, Paul George without Paul George obviously does hurt. Caleb going back to Miami, 2 years, $8 million. Decent deal for both sides there. Klay Thompson plans to have discussions with the Mavs, Lakers, Clippers, and 76ers in the opening hours of free agency. It's sad that Klay isn't going to probably be a Warrior next year. Russ Westbrook signed for $4 million next year, but the Clippers are trying to trade him now. So that's super interesting. There's a report on Zach LaVine for Andrew Wiggins and Chris Paul, in which the Golden State Warriors said no. Queta staying with the Celtics. Look, the Celtics need a lot of big men, so they signed Luke Cornett. I don't know if that popped up here, but they signed Queta as well. Again, KP is going to be out a while. Pretty decent. I don't want to say huge news here, but Andre Drummond signing with the Philadelphia 76ers. Because look, the 76ers are kind of like the Nuggets, and a backup big for those teams are really important. You got to be able to withstand some impact without those guys. I don't know how high I am on Andre Drummond at this stage of his career, but I don't hate that sign at all. KPJ going back to the Clippers. Now, look, it's crazy to me that whether it's Primo, whether it's KPJ, it's just sad. I don't even want to speak on this. It's sad to me. I guess good for KPJ, but sad to me. KCP headed to Orlando. Now I want to talk about this. 3 years, $66 million. A lot of people want to say this is an overpay. You guys got to realize, for an elite 3-and-D type player, I don't even want to call him an elite player, but for a really good 3-and-D player, $22 million is fine. It's fine. You look at what OG and Anunoby got signed for, and you guys can say, well, Ty, OG's better. I agree, but KCP has been healthier throughout his career. Different, has 2 championships. He's been a winning player. So the fact that people want to make this out to be a bad signing, I'm not with that. Good for the Orlando Magic. Provides some much needing shooting for that team. 76ers frontrunners for Paul George. Doesn't seem like the Clippers are going to land him. This was at 7 Central Time last night. Cade Cunningham, Pistons agree to max contract. Obvious. This is an obvious one. I don't know why anybody wanted to be oh, what's that? No, Cade deserves this. Clippers statement on Paul George parting ways. They want to be a highly competitive team moving forward, and they don't want to get stuck in a contract in which they have Paul George for a max when he's 37, 38 years old, and they're no longer competing. So I get it from the Clippers side, but it's just going to be tough heading into next year's without him. Chris Paul agrees to a deal with the San Antonio Spurs. Huge for Wemby. Huge for Chris Paul, huge for Greg Popovich, huge for Stephon Castle. That's a big deal for everybody. It's a great deal. Chris Paul is going to help Wemby out. Castle wants to be a point guard in the future. Guess what? No better guy to show him how to do it than Chris Paul. Absolutely love the deal for both sides there. Joe Val, pretty cheap. 3 years, $30 million. I get he's getting older. I get, you know what, defensively he has his limitations, but I still feel like it's pretty cheap for Jonas Valanciunas, who is a solid enough big. Mason Plumlee agrees to a 1-year deal with the Phoenix Suns. I mean, okay, like, I don't think he's going to help them necessarily. Like, he's fine, but I don't know. It's not moving the needle for me. Najee Marshall heading to Dallas. Now, here's my thing with Najee Marshall. Last season shot 39% from 3. Been inconsistent in his career, but last season shot 39% from 3. Brings toughness, brings defense. I really do like that signing. Derrick Jones Jr. plans to sign a 3-year deal with the Los Angeles Clippers. To me, Derrick Jones Jr. signed 3 years, $30 million with the Clippers. Najee Marshall signed 3 years, $27 million for the Dallas Mavericks. That's basically the same contract. I don't know from Dallas's side if they prefer Najee Marshall to Derrick Jones Jr. If it's one of those things Derrick Jones Jr. would rather be in LA than Dallas. I don't know, but this is a great signing for the Los Angeles Clippers. Honestly, I think Derrick Jones Jr. deserved to be paid maybe even a little more. This is at 3:56 a.m. Paul George agrees to max 4-year, $212 million contract to join the 76ers. That's the big thing, right? $212 million. 4-year contract for Paul George. He's going to be 37 and 38 years old, making $55 million. Now, look, again, I'm not hating on this because Philly wants to compete. They want to help Joel Embiid out. And I think a lineup of Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, Joel Embiid, you fill in the pieces from there moving forward. You have a contending team. The problem is, a couple years down the road, I don't know how good Paul George is going to be. But they're real contenders in the East. The East is stacked. Paul George agreeing to that contract. I mean, again, I can't really fault that. Tyrese Maxey, 6 years, agreed to 5-year, $204 max. Everybody knew this one was coming. Aaron Wiggins is staying with Oklahoma City Thunder after the two sides agree. 5-year, $47 million. New 4-year, $48 million contract. They paid Isaiah Joe. Look, and I get Isaiah Joe's good. He's making more than Derrick Jones Jr. I don't know, man. I don't know. I like Isaiah Joe, but I don't know about that. Is reporting that center Jalen Smith is joining the Chicago Bulls. Guess what? I like this for Chicago. Why? It's a young big man to add to that young core. I like it for Chicago. He might not be the most eye-opening, but he's young. He showed flashes in Indiana. I like this for the Chicago Bulls. And I think that's basically where we are at right now. But the big news, Paul George teaming up with Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid. I love that for Philly. It's just a matter of right now it looked good. 2 years from now, could look like an absolute disaster. Drop a like on the video, subscribe if you are doing it. As always, man, I love you guys. Have a blessed day.